Welcome to You Can Trust Yourself with Meg and Maggie. Nothing feels as good as listening to your own voice, and each week we have conversations to help you do just that. Get comfy, grab your favorite fun drink, and let's dive into this week's episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of You Can Trust Yourself podcast. As you know from last episode, because we would not stop geeking out about it, welcome to the Trust Pod community, trusties.
The Trust Pod.
The Trust Pod. You are now entering the Trust Pod. If we were like cool and lived in Silicon Valley, we would have an actual pod that we recorded in, but that would probably be ridiculously expensive. Yeah, one day I would like a Trust Pod. For now, we could probably rent one of those pods that come to your house for moving stuff. That would be our fabulous version of that. But I am so excited about today's episode because there is nothing your girl loves more than a cozy vibe. Give me all the rest.
You are the queen.
Oh, I am the queen of cozy. That is who I am. Ask me for the best cozy blankets. I got you. Ask me for the best cozy socks. I also got you. They're the same brand. Ask me for bedding information. I got you. I am the queen of cozy. Intimate, warm, rest, sleep, hibernation mode. That is what I breathe as a human being. So if you also are one of those individuals, this is going to be a really fun, exciting episode for us to talk about. And I want to hear from you all too. So please, all the cozy vibes this week on social media, get on over to our Instagram, get on over to TikTok, get on over to Spotify and Apple and leave us reviews of I want to hear all the cozy things for you too. So Maggie, I kind of want to start clearly. I have a hyper fixation on all things cozy. So when you hear those words, rest, sleep, cozy, hibernation, fuzzy, warm vibes, what do you think of? What does that mean for Maggie?
Well, the initial thought that pops into my head, that is not the actual thought that I want to have. It's just the ingrained thought is, don't stop. You're going to fail. How dare you slow down? That's the messaging that shows up in my brain. I am not the queen of cozy. I am learning cozy. I am learning rest. I am learning slow down. Okay. So that's what comes to mind for me instinctually. But when I think about it from a more frontal lobe conscious point of view, what comes to mind for me is usually being by myself, or with my husband, but not big groups. I don't want to chill with a lot of people, a book. I love to be on my couch with a nice fuzzy blanket and my book and a fun drink. When we're talking about the fun drinks, I'm serious. It's all the time fun drinks,
People probably think we mean alcohol. I just want to preface that we talk about fun drinks. It's literally in our intro. Both of us do barely drink. You don't drink at all, right, Maggie?
Nope.
Zero. I drink very seldomly, maybe a couple times a year tops. And so when we say fun drinks, they're not alcoholic.
Nope. No alcohol. No. Not for me. If that's your thing, that's your thing, but it's not my thing. So that's kind of what I think of. And I think of warm. I want my room to be warm. And I want to be able to be in an environment that makes me feel less anxious and wound up and I have to go,
Yeah. I love getting to know that. That's one of my favorite questions in life. And I also use it a lot with clients is tell me what that looks like for Maggie. Paint me a picture, because everybody's idea of that is different, right? One trustee to another's idea of coziness is going to be different. To some, they're I just need a little moment every now and again where I watch a movie and I have the blanket. And I am someone who I'm during these, especially as the TikTok people say, the burr months, right? November, December, all the September, the fall, all the burr months. It's it's a marathon for me, not a sprint. I don't need one movie with a candle. I need nightly experiences of cozy. I don't know what that means. And, we could go down a rabbit hole of what it means. I don't really care what it means. It feels good that we all have our different versions of it. And I love yours. If I was to think of, obviously we're really good friends outside of this too, like you nuzzled up on the couch with your dogs and Kaz can be around too, and just your people and the pups and your book and a fun drink is like Maggie. Like if somebody was like, paint me a picture of Maggie in her most cozy, content space, that's truly what I would draw. And I know your
Yes.
house, so I would get the frame right. Although you move your furniture all the freaking time, I would have no idea where your furniture was. But other than that, maybe it's not really that
We've
often.
only moved it twice.
So it must just be that we don't live by each other, sadly. So when I come back, I'm like, it's different. How
Yes,
dare you?
that's what
Um,
happened. Yes.
but that's where I would draw you, is cozy on that couch with a comfy blanket and all of those things. So I want to talk a little bit about, that's like the tip of the iceberg of cozy, right? What does it mean to truly rest and hibernate and take the time to do all those things? So there was the first time that I started really working on this. I don't think I was always the queen of cozy. I think I was like, had a big interest in cozy, but I was a little more similarly to you, Maggie, of I had a really hard time resting. I just did. And that can come from many places, and there's not necessarily anything wrong or good or whatever. Everybody has their own, what's the right word? Everybody has their own idea and vision of what they want their life to look like, right? And so for me, my mom loves when I talk about her on the podcast. She actually tries to find the episodes where I talk about her. I grew up watching a mom who did not rest. Okay. She slept. Homegirl would sleep. Not a lot, but she slept some. Okay. She did not rest. There was not a restful bone in her body. And in a lot of ways, situationally, she didn't have a lot of opportunities to rest. Okay. She was hustling and grinding and raising two children by herself and working full time and going to school and blah, 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 blah. All of the things. Sorry, that was very like, my mom's going to be like, what the heck? Blah, blah, blah. All really good, important things. And I watch her now as an adult, and she has a really, really hard time resting because our bodies can get really used to that go, 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 to the point where it's like, my mom doesn't have little kids running around anymore, right? We're grown, we're taking care of ourselves. She has time to rest. And so we'll have these conversations often, her and I, of, she's like, I feel very stressed and overwhelmed. And me, of course, the queen of cozy, is coming in and is like, do you rest? Do you build in time for rest and enjoyment and play and pleasure? And I use her as an example because we're super close and I'm able to graciously use her as an example. But so many of us, even myself, I learned that. So I started doing that. I would be working on things. I had no boundaries with technology. I'd be on my phone late at night. I'd be working on things late at night. And I would be constantly feeling like I was in a rat race and I didn't understand where the heck the race was taking me. I knew I was in a race. Okay. But I was like, who's running the race? What's the prize at the end? Because I'm not really enjoying this fully. Right. So a few years ago, I went on a long tangent to tell you that a few years ago, the therapist I was working with recommended this book to me called Wintering. I can't remember the exact author of it at this moment, but if you're curious, reach out to us on social media and I'll send you a link to the book. But that book really started to open my eyes to maybe a different way, right? A slower way in some ways, to where we can still work hard and achieve what we want to achieve and let go and release some of the shame and guilt for resting, because so many of us feel that, right? And so I see you shaking your head, Maggie. It sounds like you've also been in a place similar to that. Can you share a little more?
Yeah, I definitely relate to that, like experiencing the shame and guilt of resting. Our world doesn't glorify those things. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't even make them okay, never mind good, right? And so when you're seeing that from people as close as your parents to as far away as, people in magazines or on TV or whatever, all of the movies we watch is the main character is someone who never sleeps, right? They're working 24/7, and we view them as someone we look up to, right? They inspire us. And there's, like you said, there's a time and a place for working a lot of hours and working hard, and there's seasons for that, right? And I think when we create it as our baseline for every single day of our life moving forward, that doesn't align with health, right? And so I think that it's perfectly okay to acknowledge that there are seasons for that. And I think it's important that, like you said, we work on also the other side of that. We work on the slowing down and the resting and the taking care of ourselves, because there's seasons for that too. Literally, whether you want to talk about, like you said, the burr months or winter or whatever, time of year, literally there's a season for that. Or it could be a different type of season in your life when maybe, you're going harder or you're slowing down, right? For me, I personally am in slash coming out of a like winter, I would call it, right? Where I really slowed down. I really stepped back from a lot of work and a lot of intensity. And now I feel like I'm kind of in like spring, where I'm ramping back up. Right. And that didn't align with the winter of New York, right? We're about to get into the winter of New York, but it was really important for me to take time in that season, and it was incredibly challenging. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, because I've never really done that before, of
Mm.
having an extended period of time of slowing down. And it made me very uncomfortable mentally and physically. Like, my body physically was uncomfortable. I was feeling like anxious and feeling those feelings of guilt and shame, and I should be doing something else. I should be doing something more productive, when
Yeah.
what I really needed most in that moment was to rest.
Mm. Though the word should, if I could count the amount of times I hear that in sessions with clients and ourselves and people, like, should, there's somebody, I don't, it's probably not somebody, it's probably a lot of people who say it, but they're like, should is like shoulding all over yourself, like shitting all over
Yep.
yourself. I don't know where I picked that up originally, but I remember somebody saying that. And it doesn't feel good when we just constantly, should is connected with shame in a lot of ways. And there's such a importance of language here around the lifestyle that we're looking to create. And before we get into some of the practicals and I tell you about the queen that I am of coziness, because I wear that crown proudly. There's also, I think I rested in some ways. I've become so good at the skill that I've become a little too sedentary in my lifestyle. And so now I'm in the season of, okay, rest is good. We don't feel any shame around rest anymore. Every now and again, it'll pop back up. And I, remember that I value rest and I know that I can show up for my clients more when I'm rested. I can show up for the trustees more when I'm rested. But I also know that there's some times where we go a little too hard in one direction, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the awareness of it and knowing that, okay, I want to pivot a little bit, right? I rest really hard in the evenings. After I put my phone away and things like that, I'm not doing many active things. And we're going to get into this soon, like talking more about our night routine, and we'll kind of bring you into our lives in that way. But I'm not doing many things physically by the nighttime. Okay. So movement, obviously, as we know as human beings, is so important. And I struggle to become super consistent with active movement. And I feel the difference in my body when I am being much more active versus when I'm not. So, for example, when I take a couple days on vacation, and let's pretend I'm in New York City, right? This is a great example. Last year I was in New York City for the holidays. It was winter, it was cozy. I did all the cozy, restful things, and I walked my little booty off, right? Like in New York City, you're either, I mean, to go uptown to downtown, it's at least $50 or you're walking, right? So most of the time, you're like, I'm sick of this $50 charge. My little feet are we're going to get going, right? And I feel the difference in my body when I'm active and when I'm walking and when I'm moving. And I love that feeling. And I don't do it enough in my everyday life to reap the benefits of it. So that's my own personal journey that I'm kind of working on now, is I rested too hard in the other direction. And so now I'm trying to bring it back to more of a center of balance of rest is good and needed and wonderful for myself. And there's no shame around that. And movement and steps and exercise and engaging with my body is also really important. And how do we bring both of those things to a place where both exist, both are great, and we let ourselves go on that journey of reassessing our lives every now and again with things like that. So, I want to hear a little more from you, Maggie, about right now in this current state of your life. What is feeling good in terms of rest, sleep, hibernation? Brings to your nighttime routine if you want, but what is that looking like for you in this season of life?
Yeah, I have really started to try to figure this out, partially through force and partially through my own free will. I have been injured since about June. It is November right now. I pulled my
Mm,
hamstring a lot of times and then ended up with like some back pain, and I haven't been able to be as active as I like to be, which I'm the complete opposite of you. I will go until I literally cannot go anymore. And so I have had to learn how to rest. And some of the things that I have really been enjoying in this like winter hibernation season that I was just in have been straight up just sleeping more, which has been really good. I can function on less sleep. I don't always respond emotionally in the best ways when I'm on little sleep, just like anyone, but I can function and I can show up and I can do what needs to be done. And I've just trained myself to be that way, but it doesn't mean that that's what's best for me. Right. So getting more hours of sleep per night has been a game changer for me. And I think the other big thing that I've really embraced is taking breaks during the day. So I have never done that before. Like, I am the type of person who will write out every single to do that I have for a day and time block it down to like 5 minute increments if necessary. Like, that is my like default go mode. And there were no such thing as rests during the day for me because it wasn't productive.
sure.
But now I'm realizing that resting during the day in a season where I am capable of doing that and prioritizing it in seasons when it's less easy to do so, but we'll talk about the winter season, um, is really, really, really productive because the more well rested I am, the better able I am to show up for the other things that I am doing.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate one you bringing us into that and the vulnerability of this isn't easy for me, right? Like it's not natural necessarily for you to feel, and correct me if I'm wrong because I never want to put words in your mouth, these are more my words, but like the worthiness to rest. A
Yeah.
lot of times rest is connected to our worth, and a lot of times societally our worth is connected to our productivity, right? It is very rare for our worth to go hand in hand with just existing.
Yeah.
And that's just a whole societal problem that we have. And I hope that over time, more people who, are waking up to the fact that it doesn't have to be like this. I do believe that that will change. The narrative of that for the future generations will change. But right now, worth is heavily tied to outcome and
Yes.
productivity and product and success and all of the other different things. And so, of course, we got that memo. Of course, we learned that, right? Whether it's family of origin or societally or intrinsically, whatever it may be, of course, that's the memo that we got, right? That's what we were given. And so, it's a conscious choice to say, okay, hard work is important. I want to do lots of that. And I want to make sure that I'm taking good care of myself. But the interesting part that you said, Maggie, that I kind of want to spend a moment on is, and this is more like existential, everybody just think about it. We don't necessarily have to talk about it today, but it's just an interesting concept for us all to ponder what Maggie just said. We a lot of times will start doing things for ourselves when the doing it for ourselves will then benefit others, right?
Mhm.
So I think about that a lot. This is super intimate, but I'm going to share it anyways. There was a time last year where I thought that I was pregnant, right? Expecting. Whatever happened to me, I don't know. I turned out to not be. I don't know what happened there. Super early miscarriage, maybe not, who knows, right? As soon as I thought that I was pregnant, my whole life was all of a sudden under a microscope of, is this good for baby, right? All of a sudden, everything I was eating and doing was tied to this thought that this future child may be existing, right? That was a really big wake up call for me of, wow, okay, so all the things I was doing and engaging in and eating or blah, 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 whatever it may be, didn't have much thought when it was only related to me, right? Why did it only matter when there was the possibility that it would impact another human being? And so that was a very big experience for me of learning that and wondering that. And so I share that super intimate story to say, I'm saying the word intimate a lot lately. I'm sorry, everybody. I don't know why. I think it's because I'm bringing you closer into my heart and into my chest. So like, we're getting more intimate. Like, I don't get to, especially if you see a therapist, we don't talk about ourselves in therapy. We're there for our clients. So on the podcast, this is where I get to really share my heart with you all. So I share that story to say that it's a very interesting thing that we do as humans to say, I'm going to rest because blank, or I'm going to do it because this. And so my hope of saying this is to start to shift the narrative towards resting for ourselves, which in turn helps others, is wonderful. And we need to start to question why the heck just doing it for ourselves isn't good enough.
Oh my gosh, this is the hardest thing that I have to grapple with. Like that question is the bane of my existence. Like seriously. My therapist said to me one day, he was like, Maggie, you can't only optimize yourself when you have to perform for others. And I was like, why would you say that? That's too true.
You're like, why?
But
Just tag me in it next time,
but
buddy.
geez, but it
God.
it really does apply, and I really struggle with that when it comes to resting. I'm like, okay, I'm even thinking about it today. This is relevant in this very moment. Right now we're recording, it's 3:22 p.m. Okay. I have my softball championships start at 6 p.m. today. Okay. I did not sleep well last night, the night before that, which is kind of ironic for the conversation that we're recording. And I was thinking to myself earlier today, okay, when we're done recording, I'm going to take a nap because then I will feel better for my softball game. Now, let me just come into my brain for a second, okay? If I didn't have a softball game, if I didn't have anything to do, would I be taking a nap? Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not.
That's it right there.
Why
Yes.
not? Why can't I take a nap when I have nothing to do? No one to show up for. I don't have to perform. I don't have to play. So that's what I'm working on.
I love it. I don't love that you're experiencing that, but I love that you're bringing us into that, right? Because so many people feel that. We feel that so hard. And so before we get into the tangibles, I love that conversation. I want to circle back to this at some point, and please come connect with us, talk with us in the DMs about this topic, because I think so many of us can relate to that of I'm doing X for Y, right? Like there's always, I was talking about this in session with a client the other day, and it's so interesting. Like we work on these things for everyone else and we forget about ourselves. And it's like the outcome is always so important to us as humans. And I truly believe a lot of it is the conditioning of our worth. And that is something that like we have to, first as the trust pod community, then we can go for the world. We as a trust pod community can say, it doesn't need to be tied to anything else. I can rest for the fact of resting because it makes me feel good. I feel good. Meg loves her cozy blanket, period, end of story. Whereas I, a lot of times, similar to you, Maggie, I attach it to something else. Because when that guilt creeps in, it's like I have a rebuttal for the guilt, right? So the guilt will creep in, it'll come crawling at me like, why are you resting? Why are you in bed at 7 p.m. on a weekday? Right? The weekday is what always gets me. The weekday comes knocking on the door and it's like, if you did this behavior on Saturday and Sunday, I may let you get away with it. But because it's a weekday, I'm going to shame the shit out of you. That's what my brain says, right? So then I have a rebuttal for my brain always, right? And in my head, a lot of times it is, but I'm resting for my clients so I can show up and be fully present with them because I can't show up and not do a good job. I'm there for them, right? Or I got to record the podcast tomorrow. I have to rest so that I can be there and show up for others. So I have to be super well rested. And that is where it is right now, right? Like, I'm not going to deny anything else. Again, on the same journey with everybody else, we're always working on something. We're always moving towards something. That is just where I'm at right now. And I hope that one day it moves towards that group creeps in less and less and less, and that I don't feel that I need a rebuttal for it. It's just I'm resting, period. Because what's so wrong with just resting to feel good? Like, think about a little kid, okay? I always like to use little kid references whenever I talk about these things, because sometimes it makes us be a little bit gentler on ourselves when we think about it from a kid's perspective. They're doing the thing, they're working hard, they're in school, maybe they're playing sports, whatever it may be. They start to just rest, right? Midday, mid-morning, night, whatever it may be. No one usually questions the rest of a child or someone else. They're resting, right? And I know that developmentally they got a lot going on, so they got to rest, whatever. I'm jealous of them. No, I'm just kidding. But we can start to think about some of that for ourselves. So if it's okay with you, Maggie, I want to transition into some of the practical ways that we are doing this in present day. So think about I'm like always walking through Maggie through a visual exercise. It's just what I want to do. She doesn't need these prompts, but I always just like push them and project them onto her. Every time. Okay, good. She likes them, thankfully. Tell us, please, what is your rest looking like? It could be night routine or whatever. Like, how is that looking from a very practical perspective each day for you?
Well, I'll tell you the things that make me feel my best, and I'll tell you how well I'm doing them. Okay. Um, so, okay, couple practical things. One, we've talked about this a bunch of times already, just within season 3. I do not sleep with my phone next to my bed. And that is a habit that I created years ago. And the earlier I can get off my phone, the better I sleep. It's like direct correlation. Um, Lately I've been like probably 75% good with that. There's a couple days where I end up scrolling or something, or checking my email at night. Like, what the heck am I doing? But for the most part, doing pretty good. So that is a huge one for me. Something I want to incorporate more, especially as we are getting into winter and the temperatures are dropping here, is taking a hot bath before bed. I've noticed that taking a hot bath really, or a really hot shower, but a bath more, before I go to bed really helps me unwind and sleep well.
Yeah.
Um, because it helps with like temperature regulation and, releasing all the right hormones and all of that. So that is something that I haven't quite incorporated into my routine yet, but I would like to
Yeah.
incorporate it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then I think the third thing that I have been doing for a while, which is good and also not sometimes, is I read fiction before I go to sleep. And for right now, this has been pretty much the only time of the day. I'm currently reading Harry Potter. I've never read Harry Potter before.
I
Don't know
love
how
it.
I escaped childhood without reading that, but I did. And so we're reading it now. And it has been really fun to read that and get to experience that story.
Yeah.
And it really helps me like wind down, stop thinking about all of the things of the day. And sometimes I end up reading a chapter or two too many, which then impacts my sleep. But if I can keep it to like one chapter, then it's really good.
Yes. I love that. I love that you're reading Harry Potter. That is something that fills my heart with joy. Anything that we can do that fills that, I know this is me being weird and again projecting, but like that almost like inner child, teenager, whatever, like something I have literally recommended to clients like to read a children's book before bed. Like a book that was designed for children, read it to yourself, right? To create that
Mhm.
routine. And so I love when things just get as it's freeing. That's what it is. I'm like trying to figure
Yeah.
out the words of like, why do I love that so much for you? And it's because it's freeing. It's not what we expect. I was thinking about this the other day. I promise I'm going to get into the practical stuff, but I just have more to say that I didn't
One
realize
last tangent.
one last tangent. Forgive me, but I think this is a really good one. we as adults, and this has direct correlation to the idea of rest. We have had what society has deemed as adult appropriate things that we do. Okay. And so as we think about rest or play or things just for pleasure without outcome, we have like this list as adults that we were given of what is an adult appropriate thing to do for rest. Right. And so a lot of times for us, that is something as simple as, which can be as wonderful, like you said, Maggie, taking a bath, taking a shower, going for a walk, lighting a candle, and all of those things. Again, Queen of Cozy, I love every single freaking one of them. And it's so fun to expand our minds of like different things that aren't as, adult appropriate. Like, what if you love to read comic books, or like Maggie's reading Harry Potter or a children's book? Or what if let's even go the opposite way, right? Knitting has always been for old people. Get out your knitting needles, right? Like things like this of, we have these adult, quote unquote, societally appropriate things, these constructs that we have had that we stay in the parameters of. And it's so freeing for our rest and our humanness to expand what that means for us, right? Get on not that we want to encourage more screen time, because we're telling you that really helps us sleep and rest when we're not on the screens. But like, oh, I would die to have my Nintendo DS back. Right? Or to get on a game like I used to as a kid, whatever it may be. There's something very freeing about that for rest. So I promise, end of tangent, back to the practicals. Like Maggie said, the phone is everything when it comes to actual rest and sleep specifically. I have become, in the last couple of weeks, pretty good at turning off my phone and staying off of it. And I will still sometimes reach for it in the mornings, but I'm trying now that I don't fall asleep scrolling to it. I'm really proud of myself for that. Doing pretty well there. I'm trying to now make myself get up in the morning and move around. And then if I want to get it back in bed and scroll, I can. So instead of just reaching for it, having myself get up and stretch my legs and just move around, get that blood flowing. And then if I want to scroll, that's like my in between for that habit, right? Because in a quote unquote ideal world for myself, I'd probably go for a walk first and then come back and rest if I wanted to, because I love a slow morning. That really makes me feel rested, as a slow morning. But I'll take it to the extreme to where I'll just lay in bed for hours, and then it's like a whole other problem in and of itself. So we're getting there. A lot of things that, we're always trying, but that's one that's really helpful for me. Another one is that after a certain hour, I have a friend of mine who, she's all things wellness, and she will actually turn off all of her lights after a certain hour. Like, they just do not go on. And I'm talking like only candle light is on. I at least will have lamps on, like low level lighting. She takes the circadian rhythm stuff very seriously, and it's great. We have a Zoom call sometimes during the week, and I'll see her in the pitch black, because she's just like, yes, sure, this light's on, but like, I'm committed to this. So take it however far you want. But after a certain hour, I really love to just keep my lighting really low. Lamps, Christmas lights this time of year. I mean, my goodness, that is something that really allows my body and my mind to be like, okay, even if I'm not sleeping, we're in rest mode. We're in cozy mode. So lighting to me is everything like that. And what are you hearing, right? So think about, when we're thinking about rest, we really want to engage our senses to really have the full experience of rest. Okay, so that's at least my idea. So when we want to really be present and be rested, the senses are so important. What do you hear? What's playing? I love a jazz station on the Google Nest or on YouTube, right? I love a crackling fireplace 24 hours on YouTube. That's what I click a lot of times. What are you tasting, right? Are you winding down with a cup of tea? Are you having some water to finish your day? What are the other senses, Maggie? Feeling. Blankets. You guys get the idea. It's the cons.
The cozy blanket is back.
The cozy blanket is back. It's engaging the senses in a way that tells your brain, I'm resting now, brain. So you can come at me with the little, guilt trip things and the shameful things, but my senses are fully engaged, all of them, in cozy vibes and rest, because at the end of the day, I deserve that rest. My body deserves that rest. My mind deserves that rest. This world is really hard and really noisy and really fast. Okay? And really great, And we really need that rest for ourselves. So I think I had enough tangents for one day, Maggie. I hope you can close up shop for me, because I'm so sorry, everybody. I took us on a crazy train, but I kind of liked it. I hope you all liked it too.
Yeah, I definitely liked it, and I agree with you. I do want to just mention the candlelight thing. Whenever the power goes out and we just have to light candles, I never sleep better. Or like when I'm camping, never sleep better than when I'm
Yes.
camping. So
Oh my
there really is
God.
something to that. There really is.
I don't want to stop talking about this. You're so right.
Okay, we're gonna stop talking about it. That
Yeah,
is
Maggie's
all
shutting me
for
down, but like, just
today.
that's the secret. Pretend the power goes out. There's nothing better than the power going out, unless it's like excessive and, you know, all those ones that really impact our lives. But if it's just like for a night or like a few hours, there's nothing better.
Yeah. So I hope that you take some of these cozy ideas into the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the winter,
Yeah.
and you are able to rest just because it's good for you. So
Yes.
that's all. And we will see you next week.
We love you. Rest up.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of You Can Trust Yourself with Meg and Maggie. Our mission is to leave you with encouragement and tools to nurture your ability to trust yourself. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe and please share it with a friend. Then take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review. Your support helps our show grow, and for that, we are extremely grateful. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch the episodes. Till next week, lots of trust and love, Meg and Maggie.